Do we have our guys on line too? 3 of them? There should be 3. Okay, so thanks for being here today, folks. It's to give us an update regarding the remnants of the typhoon that hit Western Alaska. You know, it seems like this is happening more frequently, and and more frequently in that area of the state, coming up the Bering Sea across the Aleutians and hitting the Kuskokwim area, the Yukon area, and then up the west coast of Alaska. You're going to get details from all of these individuals here. We've got our congressman online, Congressman Begich is online, as well as Senator Sullivan and our Department of Education Commissioner Dina Bishop. We'll be able to answer all your questions. We'd like you to keep the questions specific to this topic just for this purpose because of the sensitivities and the severity of what's occurred out in Western Alaska. But again, you know, we were, in some respects, we get a heads up when it comes to these typhoons. And in many cases, people prepare. But oftentimes, you just can't predict how severe the typhoon will be. So, for example, and they'll talk about this regarding the weather, but we're anticipating more damage further north. That hasn't materialized. Again, we'll get into that discussion. But there has been some severe damage, especially in villages in the Kuskokwim, and we'll be talking about especially those 2 villages, but there's others that have damage as well. And we have people flying over. We have people on the ground. We're going to get more people out on the ground to assist, just like we did with all the other disasters that we have in the state of Alaska. We will help folks on the ground with immediate needs. We will help folks on the ground with midterm needs, and we will help folks on the ground with long-term needs. This is not just a photo op. We will mobilize every resource that we have. Our federal elected officials will talk about the conversations they've been having here as we go through the run of show. So this is all hands on deck operation from the state perspective, from the local perspective, and I want to thank all of the local folks out there. Association of Village, we have our village tribes out there. We have administrators. I was speaking with Gavin Phillips from Quig today. In the midst of all of this devastation, he's doing everything he can to help his people. Local people across the border doing it. Our National Guard is doing it. Our state defense forces, our naval militia, anyone and everyone that we can possibly deploy out there is helping people out there. And so we're going to get into some details right now. We're going to go down the run of show. We're going to start off with Commissioner Cockrell, DPS. He's going to give you as much information as possible. And I think, where is Grant? You've lined out that we're going to go through all this before the questions. And then when you ask the questions, please be specific as to who you want to address those questions to, because we do have a large lineup of folks up here, and we want to make sure we get the people to the microphone that you want to talk to. So with that, let's get into some details as to what has occurred and then what we're looking at in terms of getting things up on their feet and what the weather is going to look like here in the next few days as well. So with that, Commissioner Cockrell, can you please come up?
Governor, thank you. Oh, by the way, I'm James Cockrell. I'm the Commissioner of the Alaska Department of Public Safety. I just want you to know from the DPS family, our hearts are with your with the families and communities who have been devastated by this horrible storm. Your Alaska State Troopers are committed to doing everything we can to bring people to safety and support these communities as they get rebuilt. They're currently on the ground in multiple areas in the Delta. As part of the State Unified Command, we have been leading the search and rescue coordination since early yesterday morning. As soon as weather conditions allowed for it, our partners with the U.S. Coast Guard, the National Guard, began deploying both fixed-wing and helicopter assets to both Kipnuk and Quig. Together, they rescued 51 people. At one point yesterday morning, we had secondhand reports of dozens of missing people in Quig and Kipnuk. At this point, we have confirmed that there are 3 people unaccounted for in Quig. We do not have any firsthand reports of missing persons in Kipnuk. However, we still are working to confirm this. And as I said, we got troopers on the ground right now trying to sort out any missing persons. Something really important, if anyone has any firsthand knowledge that someone is missing, please call the Alaska State Troopers or the State Emergency Operations Center. This is critical. Our military partners will be providing additional search and rescue operations today, and they will detail in a few moments. DPS currently is reprocessing another additional search and rescue helicopter from Fairbanks from our fleet to assist in the search operations. We also put our DPS aircraft and pilots on standby as of yesterday morning. We couldn't have done this without the first fast response from the U.S. Coast Guard, the Alaska Army, and Army National Guard. We are super thankful for you guys' support and how quickly you got to this scene. Alaska is home to over 20,000 active duty and reserve military warriors. And yesterday, many of them jumped in immediately into action to respond to the YK Delta. And again, I want to thank you for your quick response. This is another example of Alaskans pulling together. The Alaska State Troopers, our VPSOs, our village our police officers, and our tribal police officers, National Guardsmen, Coast Guardsmen, and everyday Alaskans all jointly responded to the YK Delta for calls for help. We know many people are still waiting for answers, and we are committed to providing them as they become available to the department. Know the full weight of the Alaska Department of Public Safety is committed to locating every single person that is missing. And again, I want to thank you, and our prayers go out to all our victims.
So next we're going to have David Kramer with the National Weather Service come on up and speak to what the weather is and what it's going to look like.
Thank you, sir. Good afternoon. I'm David Kramer, a meteorologist with the National Weather Service. Going to give a quick recap of what we have been seeing with ex-Typhoon Halong, and then move into some of the forecasts for what we expect over the next couple days. Next slide. So a summary for what we're seeing with Halong currently. It has now moved out of Alaskan waters. It is over just to the north of Canada now. It continues to weaken and move to the east. That means that the majority of impacts that we are seeing in our state from Halong are on the decline. And all of our high wind warnings and wind advisories at this point have ended. So the wind concerns are over. There are still a few communities under coastal flood advisories that we are still watching. Those are primarily up north. We have flood advisories out for the Kotzebue Sound area through Point Hope. That is until Tuesday morning at 4 a.m. We also have flood advisories out from Point Hope through the western Arctic coast. That is out until 10 a.m. on Tuesday. And then we still have a flood advisory for the lower Cusco from Bethel down to the mouth of the Kuskokwim River, and that is in effect until 6 p.m. this evening. The storm surge backed up the river and caused some minor flooding in communities up through the Delta up into the Bethel area. So we are still monitoring that. Water levels are going down, but there are still some areas that are higher than usual. Next slide. Some of what we saw for impacts from Halong. We did set two records. On this slide, you can see at Kwigillingok, we do have, I don't have it listed as a record on here since the time of making this slide. We have confirmed that that is a record as well. But starting up at the top here with Kipnik, 6.6 feet is what we saw above the highest normal tide line. The previous record was 4.7 feet, and that was back in 2000. So almost 2 feet higher than what we have seen before for Kipnik. Quite a big difference. And for Quig, we had 6.3. The previous record was 3.1. Again, not on this slide. We have just recently confirmed this, and that was back in 1990. And for reference, last year in August, we had a good amount of coastal flooding there as well. That was only up to 2.5 feet, so almost 4 feet higher than last year. And Murbach was only up at 1.7 for Quig. Next slide. We also had very strong winds. Kisilvac had 107 miles per hour observed. Tuksuk Bay, 100 miles per hour. St. George, 98 miles per hour. And for reference, if you look at the hurricane categories, Category 2 hurricane wind speeds 96 to 110 miles per hour. We had 3 areas that saw Category 2 level hurricane wind speeds. And if you look down below, we had several communities in the 80s, several in the 70s, and many communities on the West Coast that approached 70 miles per hour. Again, very strong storm for both water levels and for wind speeds. Next slide. Well, switch gears now and look ahead. This is a Tuesday afternoon slide, and we're focused on the low that is approaching the central Aleutian Islands. And you can see on there some stronger wind speeds around this low. To the east of Unalaska, we have some stronger southeast winds coming in. East of Adak, some stronger northerly winds. This storm is going to progress to the east as we look at the next slide here for Wednesday morning. It's pushing over the eastern Aleutian Islands now, and is going to continue that track along the Aleutians through the Alaska Peninsula and into the Gulf of Alaska. As it moves through, especially on Wednesday, some of those stronger winds will make it into southern portions of the West Coast, and there will be the potential for some areas of higher water levels, but nothing near what we saw yesterday morning. Next slide. So Wednesday afternoon, the low pressure is near the Alaska Peninsula here. Again, some stronger easterly winds along the West Coast. That flow coming offshore from the land to the water is very favorable to not have many coastal flooding concerns with this storm, but we could see winds gusting up to 35 miles per hour. Next slide. And we'll kind of summarize what we're seeing, focused on the Kuskokwim Delta area as the area of biggest concern for this next storm. Oh, again, we can see winds gusting 35 to 40 miles per hour out of the east-southeast, and that is specifically for the Kuskokwim Delta area. And the biggest area of concern will be south-facing communities near the Delta and to the west. So specifically, especially for the water levels, that is Quigillinhawk and for Kungiganac, and those are the two communities that we will be most concerned about. Now, with those, we do expect the highest water levels to be associated with the highest tides. Those will happen in early morning hours between 4 and 6 a.m. roughly. And we only expect water levels to peak around 1 to 3 feet. So again, if from the records that we set recently, over 6 feet, this is significantly less. We expect significantly less impacts. The main concerns are high water levels, rough surf, and the potential for some coastal erosion. With that, it'll conclude for weather, and I'll pass it over to Captain Culpepper with the U.S. Coast Guard.
Mr. Governor, senior leaders, and the people of Alaska, hello, my name is Captain Christopher Culpepper. I serve as the sector commander for U.S. Coast Guard forces across Western Alaska and U.S. Arctic, also the incident commander for U.S. Coast Guard sector incident management team. I'd like to provide you today with an update on the status of Coast Guard forces and rescues to date. The Coast Guard, with valiant efforts from Coast Guard air crews out of Air Station Kodiak throughout yesterday and last night, recovered 31 members, survivors, and transported them to safety, working in close concert with Army and Air National Guard aviation assets as well, recovering an additional amount of 8 and 9 respectively, for a total of 51 rescued so far. Coast Guard Cutter Kimball, one of our high endurance cutters off the coast, is in position and assisting from a logistics standpoint, as well as an unmanned aerial vehicle standpoint, to continue with shoreline searches and shoreline assessments. As we continue through the initial search and rescue phases, we are also looking very closely towards marine environmental response. There's a vast stretch of the coastline that has been affected with dozens and dozens of regulated and additional fuel facilities. These facilities are those that which the communities rely upon for home heating oil, assistance through winter for travel, for fuel for vehicles, boats, aircraft, and they're critical assets. Our teams will deploy to conduct assessments and establish a prioritization of effort for response and recovery entities to either collect pollution and or provide pollution assets towards that end. As we continue to provide keen resources towards this particular incident, we have a vast AOR that we're working in a layered approach in conjunction with our area command, Coast Guard Arctic District staff, and beyond, to include PAC area, assisting with resources as we're requesting. And as we are looking through the entire Gulf of Alaska to the east and Prince William Sound as potential storms impact there later this week, we're also watching very closely out the west in the Aleutian chains through the Bering Sea and Bering Straits, and there's a lot of area to cover. We do ask that mariners continue to exercise maximum prudence. In the event that VHF radio or other communication systems are down by wind or other effects, we are asking folks to continue to leverage satellite systems, whether that be phone or telex, for major vessel traffic and heed warnings based upon the severe weather. We ask that all mariners exercise extreme prudence. As we continue to look through prioritization of search and rescue and marine environmental response, our priorities remain safety of life, preservation of life, responding to post-storm damage assessments and surveys. We're conducting shoreline assessments as we speak. We have petty officers who are transiting with chartered aircraft and Coast Guard aircraft who are scouring the shorelines to identify major areas of impact. We ask folks to report any known pollution to the National Response Center, NRC. Please report known pollution to the National Response Center. Additionally, any requests for assistance, please provide notification to the State Emergency Operations Center. The U.S. Coast Guard is working very closely in support of the state EOC, the Alaska State Troopers as the search and rescue mission coordinator for this incident, and also our National Guard partners. We continue to endure through this with you. Our hearts go out to you. And for those of you who are affected, we are looking for you. We want to provide you help. And with the partnerships we've provided here with the updates today, we want to continue to persist through. We will continue to act and we continue to respond. Thank you. I'll now turn this over to Major General Sachs, the Adjutant General.
Well, thank you, Major General Sachs, and I'm in Military and Veterans Affairs, and our responsibility really is to bring it together for the entire state. So working with our tribal partners, of course, with the Coast Guard, active duty, and really every entity within the state, and sometimes outside the state as well. So I have been contacted by the White House, and I know the governor has as well. They have offered up their assistance, and certainly Northern Command. So just a couple words to go forward. Compassion is number one. I talked to, I'll say, some leaders from Quig this morning, and this is a very emotional event, understandably. Kipnuk as well. The difference between this and Murbach was, I'll say, more extended on the coast. This really did hit certain areas very hard, and we want to get our help there, as I said, very quickly. So over here, as far as the operation, this may end up being the largest off-the-road system response for the National Guard in about 45 years. So very significant. Again, we want to get out there. We're going to stand up what we call task forces in Nome, Kotzebue, and Bethel. And from there, we're going to do a hub and spoke system. So you heard from the Coast Guard that we had a very extensive search and rescue operation yesterday. Again, to put things in perspective, that is the largest I've seen in quite some time. Roughly 50 people were rescued last night, 50 souls. And as mentioned, again, with the compassion, we still have about 3 that we cannot account for. But to go forward, when you have the hub and spoke system, it's a very effective system because you have a large contingent, usually at the armory, and then you can get out to the various places around that armory. But right now we're focusing on those 3. Depending on how the storms go, we may have to expand that a little bit, but right now we think that's a good place to start. As far as the priorities, number one, and this is for everybody here in the room, it's life and safety. And part of that last night was the search and rescue. So we want to go, as was mentioned, we are looking for people, actively looking for people right now. And because communications are a little sketchy in some of the places, we're double checking, triple checking to make sure, are you sure you have everyone? Going to village leaders and wanting to say, are you okay, but do you have everyone accounted for? So that's number one. If we have to evacuate people, and we've had to evacuate a few people already, the likely places they would go to would be Bethel. If we have to do a large-scale evacuation, again, I'm not saying that's going to happen, but it may have to happen, and I have my folks thinking about that. We are going to go to where the people want to be taken. So it could be Bethel, it could be Anchorage, it could be other places within the state, but we're looking at options right now because we have to be ready in case is the case. Now, we have a lot of aircraft ready to take people to wherever they need to go, but as I said, this is a larger scale operation than normal. Next is life sustainment. For the people who are going to remain, there has to be, yes, shelter, there has to be power. There's a lot of places currently without power, and of course, food and water, etc. So we're taking in lists right now, who needs what, and with the entire force going forward to drop off the supplies that are needed. And lastly, and this is important, but this is a little bit down the line, is damage assessment. How many houses do we have left? Again, going back to Quig and Kipnuk, if you can imagine being in a house, and that house, your shelter, the place you call home, has been taken up and literally taken down the river. We have to make sure that these people are taken care of emotionally, food and water, but of course with shelter as well. Lastly, I do want to pass this to Mark. He's from our Homeland Security. But if you have any questions, go to the website ready.alaska.gov. And if you do have information that you can get to the State Emergency Operations Center, I'm going to give you a phone number, 907-428-7100.
So before Mark comes up, General, do you want to just touch upon the work of the State Defense Force
Sure.
and Naval Militia as part of your operation?
Sure. Alaska National Guard, but State Defense Force and Naval Militia as well. We call it the Alaska Organized Militia. To give you a little perspective on the numbers and where people live, I have activated every single person that resides in Western Alaska. So whether they be the State Defense Force, the Naval Militia, or the National Guard. Why? Because it's easier to help when you live in that place. They know the land, they know the terrain, they know exactly what needs to be done. So that has been done already. I'll call that the phase 1. The phase 2, and we've started that today, we're taking people primarily from Fairbanks and Anchorage, and we're getting them out to these rural places. So as far as an overall number, I'm going to say we're going to be around 60 to 80 today as far as people who are activated, to include the State Defense Force, as the governor mentioned. And by tomorrow and into the week, it could be upwards of 200. Those aren't hard numbers, but really it's whatever the state needs we're going to get. State Defense Force in particular, the genius of them is they are primarily in Western Alaska, and we can activate them where they are, and they have been a great resource to go forward.
Mark?
Hi, Mark Roberts. I serve as the state's incident commander for the State Emergency Operations Center. We execute the governor's authorities for disaster emergency response and coordinate the overall response and recovery. I want to make clear that the governor has declared the area of disaster on the West Coast. If you live in that area, the programs that we have as a state to help you in recovery are now activated, and you can register with the state to receive assistance. We're glad to help you register. We're going to have some folks on the ground with pen and ink to help you register. I think these folks have, these fine folks have highlighted the government's response, and I just want to emphasize this response includes the whole of the community. Government is part of the answer, but I wish you could have seen it. Literally in my office today, there was dozens of people talking the Red Cross, Salvation Army, faith-based groups like Samaritan's Purse, Central Kitchen, Mennonites in Disaster, private sector, volunteering, donating resources. The list, I would say we probably have over 50 different organizations and companies that have donated, either faith-based or airlines or transport companies or grocery companies. Too long to list. We'll try and get in our, where's Jeremy? We'll try and get in our press release or in our sit rep soon. But I just want Alaskans to know that even we've heard from the lower 48 today. So wanting to assist us and help you. So we're coming. We're going to have folks there to help you. They're going to be operating. It's been very scary. Very, very scary for folks. Let me tell you, the folks that were in houses that were floating and didn't know where they were was one of the most tragic things our folks in the state EOC has ever faced. And some of them called into the state EOC, and we just stayed on the phone with them to talk. And so you've heard the heroic work that's been done for search and rescue. Our priority now is to get 100% accountability. If there's been tragedy, we want to help them. We've had a few injuries. We're moving them to higher level care as needed. And then we're moving right on in to support sheltering, and then right on into the next to support the ability for people to live in a safe, warm place through the winter. We got a very short time. It's October already. I think you remember Murbach was September. So we've lost time already. The governor's ordered, and we're stepping on the gas. We're coming to help you. It may mean government. It may mean other communities. It may mean volunteers. I will tell you that it's disruptive for everybody. If your house has washed away. That's something that is just hard to recover from. We're going to do everything we can to help you, but we recognize that this is something that is tragic, and we're operating with, as has been mentioned, with a heart of compassion. And I'm going to hand it over now to Commissioner Anderson with the Department of Transportation and Public Facilities.
Thank you. Commissioner Anderson, Alaska Department of Transportation and Public Facilities. Our focus right now is safety for the traveling public, safe ways to travel, safe infrastructure. And for this region, our number one priority is airports, as this area isn't connected to the contiguous road system. We had over 50 airports impacted by the storm events. This included flooding, this included wind damage. We visually assessed the majority of those, and they're open. The ones that haven't had that assessment yet, we anticipate will be assessed today. So in addition to the airports, there also have been numerous reports to us of roadway damage, boardwalk damage. Boardwalks are the roads in this region. And then also just various power outages and lighting problems throughout the region. As we move forward as a department, we've assembled 10 damage assessment teams that were mobilized over the weekend. Several of those are on the ground today, and they are equipped with subject matter experts in infrastructure repairs, but also drone pilots, certified drone pilots, that will be doing damage assessments as quickly as possible, getting us the information so we can move on to the next step, which is repairs. So we're moving forward. We have a good plan right now in place, and we're working to execute that plan. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Commissioner Dina Bishop with the Department of Education.
Hey, Commissioner, before you go, just also as we're doing an assessment of the folks in the villages and communities themselves, keep in mind if there are folks out hunting or out at their camps, we need to do accounting of those folks as well. So if you're concerned about loved ones, friends, neighbors that may not have been in the village itself during this event, if you think they're out of camp, we need to know that as well. So we can make sure that we check on those folks to make sure they're doing all right. So Commissioner Bishop, just give us a update on the status of the schools, schools that are open, schools that may not be, schools that are being used as gathering points and as shelters.
My name is Dina Bishop, Commissioner of Education. In concert with the Governor's Emergency Response Team, the Department of Education and Early Development's School Facilities Team has been in contact with 8 of our Western school districts to assess conditions in their communities and support the safety of families, as well as our students. We've learned that while many homes and community structures have sustained extensive damage, our schools have, fortunately, experienced only minimal impacts. Some communities continue to face power and water outages, as well as disruptions to telephone service, making the communication challenging. In many areas, cell phones have proven to be the most reliable means at this point in time. In true Alaska spirit, several districts have stepped forward to support their neighbors in need. Communities such as Kivalina and Kotzebue have opened their schools to serve as emergency shelters, providing safe and warm spaces for those affected. We are encouraging all districts to continue supporting their communities in whatever ways are needed, including opening school facilities when it's appropriate. In the lower Kuskokwim region, families who had sought refuge in the schools are beginning to return home, and several schools have already reopened for regular operations. Our team has also gathered contact information for contractors currently working in these regions on school facilities projects. That information has been shared with the administration to help coordinate and strengthen ongoing recovery efforts. We're deeply grateful for the first responders, as well as educators, administrators, and maintenance staff who have worked tirelessly to keep students safe. To all our affected districts and families, please know we're here and we care. And the Department of Education stands ready to support as the community recovers, rebuilds, and heals from the disaster. Thank you. And now, Senator Sullivan.
So,
Thank you, Commissioner. Go ahead. Governor.
No, I'm sorry. Go ahead. So next is Senator Sullivan, and we're going to turn it over to you.
Great. Thank you, Governor. And like everybody, we've been watching this and praying for everybody in Western Alaska, particularly those who are missing right now. And I think Mark Roberts did a really good job of describing everybody coming together, different groups, different communities. That was the silver lining in Merbach typhoon. So I just want to thank everybody for the incredible work, particularly our Coast Guard and military. 51 souls saved yesterday is just incredible. So I can't thank all of you enough. What we've been doing is trying to make sure the federal government is ready for action. In particular, I've been in contact on a very regular basis starting 2 nights ago with the FEMA director, David Richardson, and then with the Secretary of Homeland Security, Kristi Noem, just to make sure they're aware of what's happening in Alaska and ready to deploy assets. As you probably know, there's a lot of storms getting ready to hit the East Coast of the United States, and so we're trying to make sure they're very focused on that. FEMA right now is in direct contact with our state and local officials and has an incident management team on the ground and a FEMA search and rescue group pre-positioned on standby. And the governor had some really good advice for me when I talked to both David Richardson, the acting FEMA director, and Secretary Noem today, which is, as we move into the recovery phase, and we're not there yet, that the federal agencies need to act very quickly. We're going to be seeing freeze up and very cold weather probably quite soon. So they have committed to being very ready to move into that phase of operations once we get there. But obviously the focus right now is on search and rescue. And then finally, we've already been asked this question with regard to the impact of the federal government shutdown. So directly from the head of FEMA and the Secretary of Homeland Security, that they don't see that shutdown that's currently, we're trying to get the government back open, impacting FEMA operations at all, or our military operations. President and the Secretary of Homeland Security have put out their commitments to make sure that our military gets paid for their paycheck on Wednesday, and I think that's important, as our military and Coast Guard are doing some really, really heroic work. So that's our focus right now, getting these federal agencies ready to move in a very quick manner. And again, I want to thank everybody for their hard work in this stressful, trying time for our state out in Western Alaska.
Thanks, Senator.
And I think Congressman Begich is next.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, Congressman Begich, if you're on.
Thank you, Governor. Thank you, Senator. First of all, I just want to thank all of our first responders, whether those are police, fire, healthcare professionals, the National Guard, and of course our Coast Guard, doing a fantastic job. And I think everyone listening today can hear just how well coordinated the state has been in stepping forward and being proactive in the situation. We've got a tremendously well coordinated response that's happening right now, and I couldn't be more proud of the folks that are involved in state. Our delegation is standing with the governor, ready to assist any and all requests for assistance from the federal government. My team has been working with tribal, local, state, and federal officials coming up to today and even in the morning to ensure that we can communicate accurately down here in D.C. and coordinate a response wherever possible. I'd like to thank the governor for his efforts and the governor's team for their efforts over this weekend in responding in a highly professional and comprehensive manner. I'd like to thank the senator for leading delegation efforts in response here in D.C. And I can assure everyone we are working together. We will do whatever we can do here in D.C. to coordinate with the governor and local officials to ensure that you've got the right level of support as we respond to and recover from this event.
So next, we're gonna go to Senator Hoffman, who represents that area and has represented it for some time, and he's going to give us some insights and some thoughts and information. Senator?
Thank you, Governor. On behalf of the people of the YK Delta, I'd like to thank everyone here for providing assistance. People's lives have been uprooted in Kipnuk and in Quigilnock. I'd also like to thank the people that have assisted in. Obviously, I think lives were saved by the quick action for the last 2 nights that were out there. It's heartening to see such overwhelming response. I'd also like to thank Dan Winkleman of the Yukon-Kuskokwim Health Corporation. He was here in Anchorage. He flew back out there. He's provided over 1,000 meals to the people out there. He informed me that they're running low, that they need additional food supplies, and it's difficult to get people out there. I think helicopters have been assisting. He informed me just before I came here that Kipnuk's runway is still not operational. There's a large crack in the runway, and this is causing problems for Kipnuk, and I'm sure that the Department of Transportation Public Facilities will be addressing this shortly. On another note, on the short-term basis, the people of Kipnuk, they've had up to 50% of their power poles that were broken in half. So the electricity is of utmost importance. There has to be a short-term assessment done of those homes that are out there, whether they are livable or not livable. I'm aware that many of the people of Kipnuk and Quig are interested in moving out as their lives have been uprooted. But the long-term basis of the stability of these 2 communities, what is going to happen to them in the long term, the assessment needs to be made and needs to be made as quickly as possible. As was stated, winter is coming. It is with prayers that I reach out to the people of the YK Delta in their time of need. Thank you.
Thank you. And with that, Grant, we're going to open this up for questions. And again, be specific if you can to individuals behind us or myself and what you want to direct the questions to. And there's folks online as well?
So we're going to start with Q&A here in the room. As the governor said, please indicate who your question is for. And for those online, please double check, like look at your phone right now and make sure that you're muted if it's not your moment for asking a question. We're going to start first with Will Courtney with Alaska's News Source.
Thanks, Grant. I have a question for Captain Christopher Culpepper. Captain Culpepper, can you explain the extent of pollution we're seeing?
Thank you. Yes, with regards to pollution, there are 2 known NRC reports. Again, NRC is the National Response Center. One is regarding a report of general sheening in the vicinity of the flooded areas, and the other report had to do with a barge that alighted with a bridge. No known pollution threats specifically, other than awareness that that incident occurred. Those overflights that we're conducting today and into the next several days will gather additional information.
All right, next we have Iris Samuels with the Anchorage Daily News.
Thank you, and this is for the governor. I'm wondering, sorry, to what extent you think this storm is due to climate change, and then given that, is there a need for the state to develop a proactive plan so that it can respond proactively when storms like this hit in the future?
So, Iris, that's a question that's often asked. Oftentimes they call these incidents an act of God. There have been typhoons previous to the past 10 years, 20 years. It's my understanding there's been typhoons, hurricanes, and cyclones in the Indian Ocean, possibly for thousands of years. And so I don't have the answer to that, to be honest with you. We certainly have had a couple stacked on top of each other the last couple of years, at least 2 under my watch. So that's a great question. I don't have the answer to that. I think we just have to be prepared. in Alaska for all kinds of disasters. Senator Hoffman raised the question, when we assess these villages, we have to determine if the villages are livable, at least for the next couple of years. And who knows, maybe for the long term, but we have a lot of places on our coastlines, a lot of villages on our coastlines. We have a lot of villages on our rivers. And some of those rivers obviously meander. And so that's a question. It's a question I think we should think about, over the long run. Right now, obviously, we're going to be focused on immediate help. What was the second part of your question? And again, we'd have to ask, what does that look like? Do we assign? And I'm not trying to be flippant, but do we assign a 100-mile swath up the coast as potential impact zones? And if so, what do we do with those communities? I mean, those discussions probably have to happen, but I don't know what it's going to look like in the end. I do want to make a comment. What was brought up was pollution, which is important, but I'm certainly going to direct my agencies. We're going to be having discussions with them that the last thing I want to hear at this point is an elder being told that they have to make sure that their oil tank that fell over because their house floated away has to be concerned about the oil that has now gone into the water. What's my point? Those issues have already happened. We got to take care of people quickly. We have to take care of their needs quickly. We have to take care of water, food, sanitation, electricity. We'll deal with the aftermaths of some of the fuel oil spills and some of the gasoline spills. But again, I think the last thing all of us want to hear is that some good people in our agencies get hung up on the regulation that basically says a tank fell over. So we need to focus on that. We'll deal with that stuff. It's important, but we have more important things right now. Sure, we can. I was hoping this would be focused solely on the immediate issues. And maybe what we can do, Iris, if you could save that question for the last on climate change, we can get some immediate questions so that the people in the state of Alaska, the lower 48, and out in the Kuskokwim can understand what's happening. And then we could talk about climate change.
All right, next we have Ginny Monet with the Nome Nugget.
Thank you so much. Is Senator Sullivan still on the line?
Yes.
Hi, Senator Sullivan. I'd like this question for you, please. On the eve of these storms, the Trump administration canceled roughly $11 billion in FEMA disaster payments to 45 states. Alaska is not one of them, but it has called into question the general flow of federal funding in these extreme weather events overall. And I'm wondering how concerned you are about the level of this federal disaster assistance being available to the villages.
Well, look, I'm a big supporter of FEMA funding and have been in direct coordination with FEMA and the Secretary of Homeland Security. And we have been, particularly when it comes to Alaska, to Iris's last point, we've been legislating both in the infrastructure bill from a couple years ago and in the WRDA bill, the Water Resources and Development Act, specific programs for Alaska. We got a climate resilience erosion program in the last WRDA bill that's set up just for Alaska in federal law. It's got a 10% cost share. So we think that is really important because it's federal legislation that's focused solely on our state for erosion due to these kind of storms. And then in the infrastructure bill just last year, we got grants that were totaling $45 million in climate resilience throughout rural Alaska. So when it comes to our state, I'm going to continue to focus on these issues. But we need to, I think, as the governor mentioned, these storms are becoming more frequent. Reaching out to a number of different leaders in the community. I had a very good discussion with Vivian Corthius yesterday from AVCP one of the things that she mentioned is maybe it's time to set up some kind of Western Alaska emergency response center so that we're ready. I think that's actually a really good idea, kind of an interagency response center. So from my perspective, in terms of Alaska, we are very focused on getting the resources that deal with these kind of emergencies. And, you know, we've even passed federal law that exclusively focuses on Alaska. So I'm going to continue to do that just for these reasons.
Thank you. And one second, Senator Murkowski's been online and following this conversation and is part of it as well. And we're going to have her come online and make some comments. And Senator, are you there?
Yeah, I am, Governor. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Yes, I've been following the press conference here. I just came over from youth and elders, and obviously a great deal of anxiety as people are sharing information that they have. And so the clarity that has been provided on this call from the Coast Guard, from General Sachs, from all you and your team is greatly appreciated. I did have a chance to visit with some of the folks who are from Quigillingok and Kipnuk, and one of the takeaways that I heard that I would hope that we would all try to think forward on is when the waters subside, when the analysis is complete. We have many families. We have communities that are in trauma, that will be in shock over the loss. And so making sure that we have trauma specialists, if you will, that are culturally in tune with the region and with the people there is something that I think we all need to be challenged to think about, because we see in the aftermath of disaster a great surge of support and help, and that is important and appreciated. But I think what these communities are facing this weekend and then going forward is something that will be with so many for a long period of time. So know that it is something that I intend to work on with others. I just heard Senator Sullivan mention some of the federal programming and resources. And you know, some of the infrastructure funds that had been directed in ways that I think could be helpful for us in the state related to climate resilience, particularly, have been pulled back for a host of different reasons. I think this disaster that we are seeing is yet one more reason why the delegation needs to lean in and make sure that the administration fully understands the value of what it means to have a level of preparedness, to have a level of resilience in an area that is so exposed on our western flank. So we've got some initiatives that are coming up literally in the next matter of weeks as they relate to how in Alaska, particularly working with our tribes, we can set up systems that are better poised to address what we are seeing on unfortunately a more frequent basis with the nature of these fall storms. And so we're going to be looking to Alaskans for their input, as well as that of our leaders in the state, tribal, and federal. Governor, thank you for getting all of your expert team on board, and the response from so many. It's deeply appreciated.
Thank you. And again, I want to thank the federal delegation for their continued work on this issue. The calls I got this weekend demonstrate to me that we have, again, our federal delegation in Washington is pretty proactive as soon as they hear about an issue like this, a disaster, that they're working with our federal folks on that. Go ahead, Grant.
All right, next we have Yerith Rosen with the Alaska Beacon.
Yeah, hi. I'd like to ask Senator Hoffman a question. people have mentioned, including the governor, that these storms seem to be happening more and more. I'm just wondering what, from a lifetime, what have you seen in the trends, and how does this storm stack up?
Well, I've been living out there for 75 years. So I would say Bethel was less than 500 people when I was growing up there in the 50s. Today it's over 7,000. We used to have much colder weather, a lot bigger snow drifts, and we've seen warming. We've seen what happens out at Newtok, the melting of the permafrost, forcing them to go to Matarvik. Many people call that Newartok, but there has been more and more warming that is disrupting lives in the YK Delta from the last 25 years that I can tell. Thank you.
We're going to move to the phones now and start with Eric Stone with Alaska Public Media.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Hi, so I would love to sort of firm up the numbers of casualties and damage that you're aware of. I know 3 are unaccounted for. Are you aware of any deaths or serious injuries? There were 3 medevacs mentioned in the morning's update. Were those people who were injured in those storms? I'm also interested in the number of homes damaged and any other sort of quantitative data you can provide on that.
We're going to have Commissioner Cockrell come up from DPS.
Good afternoon, James Cockrell, Commissioner of Alaska Department of Public Safety. Can I just get part of your question there towards the end, please?
Yes, I was hoping to just sort of get a firmer quantity of like the number of people who are, we know that 3 are unaccounted for. Have there been any deaths? Have there been serious injuries? And curious for like numbers of homes that were damaged or destroyed, that sort of thing.
I don't have the number of homes. I will say we're still, as far as I know, we still have 3 missing persons. We've had a few injuries that were taken care of, I think mostly by the Coast Guard or the Army Guard. However, we're still, to my knowledge, we still have 3 people that we're currently looking for until I hear something from my department. That's kind of where I'm going to stay with it.
All right, thank you. As a reminder,
3 people who are medevac.
As a reminder, please make sure that your phone's muted if you're not asking a question. Next, we'll go to Becky Bohr with the Associated Press.
Thanks, Grant. This is for the 2 U.S. senators when you had mentioned resilience funds or BRIC funds. Are you aware if the fight over having those funds frozen affected any projects in the region that could have helped to mitigate some of the damage we saw with this storm?
I'm not.
So Becky,
we can look at.
Becky, I've been in touch with the EPA administrator today as well, and there were some grants that we were trying to get put back in. I've been in discussions with him today, actually, about this. A lot of the grants that were either frozen or stripped from the federal government early on, our delegation, Senator Murkowski, Congressman Begich, and I got most of those put back in terms of going to our state, but there was one that dealt with erosion in the region that I'm not sure would have been implemented in time. But look, the broader issue that I mentioned earlier is we have been actually legislating specifically for Alaska on these kind of erosion issues that we're seeing more frequently. And we're actually going to be marking up the Water Resources and Development Act next year on the Environment and Public Works Committee. That's where we got this erosion program specifically for Alaska in the last bill. So we're going to be continuing to focus on these funds. Senator Murkowski and I worked these issues in the bipartisan infrastructure bill. But we have challenges across our state, and it's our job to make sure whether our fellow members of Congress or people in the or in the executive branch recognize it, and that's what we've been doing specifically for this storm for the last couple of days, but more long term in terms of legislation, which is why we're so focused on it.
Well, and to follow up on that real quickly, Becky, these funds that would have been made available from the climate resilience account, they're not things that you can just turn on a dime and you can get an erosion project completed. But our reality is we are seeing these storms coming on a certainly on a more frequent basis, and the intensity that we're seeing seems to be accumulating as well. And so the time to act on it is now, because it's going to take us some time to get these in place. And so this is why going back and underscoring to the administration why they're so important, not necessarily for today's storm, but so that we're better prepared for the future storms.
All right, thank you. Next, we have Corinne Smith with the Alaska Beacon.
Hi, thank you. My question is about emergency shelter, and with hundreds, if not thousands, of people sheltering in communities now at local schools, and assessing the damages to homes. Like, what emergency shelter could be made available, and will you be able to transport emergency shelter maybe to villages, or would that have to be in more central locations like Bethel? And what are the opportunities there?
We're going to have Mark Roberts come up and talk about that.
Yep. Our first move is to get people rescued. Second move is to get them to a safe shelter. If that safe shelter is in the community, the schools tend to function, as Commissioner Bishop said, as our lifeboats in the communities. If the community, school, or shelter, and we support the local incident command, that's our job. If the community, local school, or shelter is inadequate or unsustainable, then we move them to another place of shelter. We're prepared to, and we're already bringing online some what we call non-congregate sheltering options if that's needed, which would be not a group shelter, but individual shelters, individual hotel type or housing. Even Senator Hoffman has recommended some housing available in Bethel that would use on a temporary interim basis until we could move through the sequence of disaster delivery to temporary housing. That we have a program in the state that allows folks to rent housing if they're a renter or a resident for a certain amount of time, 6 months to 18 months, depending on the case, to give them a place to live.
You want to mention the website?
Sure. Well, I'm up here, and I do want to make clear, prior to Typhoon Halong, we had a storm that impacted the Northwest Arctic Borough. There's folks in Kivalina, Deering, and Kotzebue that also have wet homes, damaged infrastructure. We have what we call in the State Emergency Operations Center branch directors there serving those folks. And everything I'm saying about available disaster response assistance is for them as well. We've unfortunately had a sequence of storms. And so we had the first storm, then we have Typhoon Halong, and then Dave mentioned another storm coming, which we're postured to respond to that. For folks that need assistance, the one place to go for the state assistance programs are ready.alaska.gov. And for individuals, they can click a button. Also there, for anyone that's interested, there is a situation report that's published every weekday. Normally, we're publishing it during a disaster every single day, and it will attach the most recent information we have, and you can take advantage of that for information purposes. So ready.alaska.gov.
Thanks, sir. Thanks.
All right, thank you. Next, we have Liz Ruskin with Alaska Public Media. All right, we'll move on. Next, we have Evan Erickson with KYUK.
Yeah, this question comes directly from a community member here in Bethel, and it is, will Governor Dunleavy, Alaska's congressional delegation, or other leaders such as the president travel out to Guigalinock or Kipnuk to see the impacts of this storm firsthand?
I can't talk to the president, but I think he's got a lot going on, obviously. But we've had that discussion from my office, and we will be assessing when we can get out there. We certainly want to get out there. So if it's hopefully it's the next day or two, once the area is considered well in hand in terms of making sure that the people on the ground, the residents, are being taken care of before I go out there. And my presence, I don't want it disrupting anything. But we've been out to almost every disaster we've had since I've been governor, and this is no exception. We care about all the people in the state of Alaska, so we've had that discussion as to when we're going to get out there. I would turn it over to Senator Sullivan, then Senator Murkowski, and then Congressman Begich to be able to answer that question.
Yeah, again, we're trying to get the government back open back here on the East Coast, and but I plan on being at AFN at the end of the week, and then my team and I are looking to get out to the region. We were out in right after Typhoon Merbok. There's a different kind of, it's not a storm, but it's a big problem we have in Juneau, and summer flooding. I spent a fair amount of time in Juneau. So I think it's very important to get on the ground, and we're going to try and do that. Mike said the president is obviously over the Middle East right now, but I will tell you this, part of our job is to make sure the White House, the Secretary of Homeland Security, the EPA administrator, the top admirals in the Coast Guard, the FEMA director, that they all know what is going on and have Alaska on their radar screen. And that's what we're doing right now. So if we can make it out there, to Governor's point, without disrupting current operations, you do not want to go out there and have some kind of visit of a elected official get in the way of helping people. So I think that's a balance that we always think about, but certainly going to try and get out there the way we've done it all the other places.
And this is Senator Murkowski. I would concur with what Senator Sullivan has added and underscore the priority that the governor has stated, that first and foremost, everybody who is out there needs to be focused on the recovery and helping those who have gone through this crisis. There is an appropriate time to come out. My hope is that I will be able to visit the region towards the end of this week. But again, only if the conditions on the ground are settled enough that it is appropriate. It is important that your elected officials, though, see the extent of the damage, understand what it means, and then be able to effectively convey that back to others who are in decision-making positions.
This is Congressman Begich. Fully agree with Senator Sullivan and Senator Murkowski's comments. I don't want to be a distraction to folks on the ground while we're working on recovery efforts, but to the extent that we can get out there, I'd like to see that in person, the damage in person. We'll continue to work this on the ground here in D.C. in the interim, and I think it's well stated. We don't want to be an impediment to the ongoing operations in the area right at this moment.
All right, thank you. Next, we have Desiree Hagan with KOTZ Radio.
Thank you so much. My question is, where were people rescued from? Were they rescued from houses, the water, from land? I'm wondering if you could paint a picture and, if there was helicopter rescues or people that were swimming, what did this look like?
We'll turn this over to Captain Culpepper with the Guard. Excuse me.
Thank you, Coast Guard, to be specific. Thank you, Mr. Governor. The picture that maybe not be very clear for folks who haven't seen any of the posts on social media or otherwise, several of these villages have been completely devastated, absolutely flooded, several feet deep. And so this took homes off of foundations. This took people into peril where folks were swimming, floating, trying to find debris to hold on to. in the cover of darkness at nighttime. And so as sun broke on the first day, devastation became more and more apparent. Coast Guard helicopter crews, along with Army National Guard and Air National crews, particularly 2 pararescue jumpers that also assisted the approach yesterday, picked people up off their homes. If you think about previous instances of major inundations such as Hurricane Katrina, that'll start to paint the picture for what you might imagine has happened along Western Alaska. A number of helicopter operations also included recovering people from the ground. There were some areas where folks could embark a helicopter safely, remove them from an isolated location, and take them to safety. It is absolute devastation in 2 particular locations, Kipnuk and Kwagilingok. These 2 communities particularly are the ones that I and all of my partners have tried to describe so clearly about the amount of trauma that our fellow Alaskan citizens are enduring right now. So trying to get those folks to safety involved a lot of help from school shelters, high ground, and further relay to areas where folks can receive higher level care. Bethel was the prominent location where folks were initially medically evacuated for that higher level care. And there are a number of critical professionals working in concert with bringing in additional resources to include nurses who were delivered yesterday by our National Guard partners, and more logistics runs to provide resources to facilitate that need. There are several people who are still in peril, in danger, and we want to prioritize focus on that. Appreciate you asking about what situation that is, but if you imagine the worst case scenario, that's what we're dealing with. Thank you.
Next, we have Elena Naiden with Alaska Public Media.
Hi, thank you so much. I have a question that kind of follows up on the previous response. So we heard that Kipnuk and Kwagilingok and also Napakiak were hit by the storm the most. So could you talk a little more about what makes them the worst and if that is changing as you are learning more about the damages?
The question was, what makes those storms the worst? So we're going to have National Weather Service.
David Kramer with the National Weather Service again. The trajectory of this low and the strength at which it was as it was moving through the area. So it passed to the west of the YK Delta area, which allowed for long duration fetch of south to southwest winds, which allowed for storm surge to build and push into those areas. It's a very deep low. It was extratropical, so it had a lot of strength with it coming in, and it strengthened as it moved through much of the southern and central Bering. So it was able to pull in more storm surge than a typical Bering low would. But fortunately, the track continued to push farther and farther to the east, which avoided areas like we saw in Murbach, where a lot of Norton Sound received a lot of higher water, and areas up in Kotzebue Sound as well. So this storm tracked a lot farther east than the Murbach one did. So it focused on the areas where they were able to, or it had the longest sustained southwest winds and surge for that spot. So because the low itself passed over the Seward Peninsula, they didn't receive as much long duration fetch from the wind direction as areas of the YK Delta.
Yep, stay up there. Iris, repeat your question at the beginning.
Yeah, it is a good question. And right now, we haven't had time to research this one. We've had a little bit more time to research ex-Typhoon Murbach, but we'll have teams at some point go back through and look over this. Our focus right now, all of our team's focus is on the support for the crews, getting out on site, that we can provide aviation weather, that we can provide general weather, and make sure that folks out there are safe, that they're preparing for upcoming weather. It is mid-October. We're getting into time frame where it's going to get real cold soon. So trying to prep people for those kind of shifts, and when we'll start to see colder weather, making sure that people are safe. We just haven't had time yet to look into any of those kind of longer term impacts. So that'll take time, and it'll take our focus. And right now it needs to be on the immediate rescue operations.
All right, thank you. Last question is from James Brooks with the Alaska Beacon.
Yes, Yukon-Kuskokwim Health Corporation is reporting 3 deaths. Can you confirm that at this point? And do you have damage assessments from all communities in the area at this point?
Commissioner Cockrell.
Good afternoon, James Cockrell, Commissioner of Alaska Department of Public Safety. To my knowledge, as I said earlier, all I know is we're still missing 3 people. Until I get a death notification from my department, I cannot speak to it. And as soon as we do hear one way or another, we'll certainly release that information. But right now, I just can't talk about it because I just don't have good information. It's not fair to the family if we went ahead and jumped ahead, because there's always situations like this where there's a lot of rumors and a lot of times we get things wrong, and I'm not willing to make that happen. So thank you.
So the most important thing I think all of us want to convey to Alaskans, especially the people that are impacted by this storm, is that we are moving quickly. We're moving as fast as we can. We're going to continue to move quickly to make sure that folks that are missing hopefully can be assisted, that housing, infrastructure, utilities, you name it, airports are brought back online as quickly as possible, that we get these communities up and running as soon as we possibly can. We also want to let people know that we're not going to let you get lost in a paperwork morass. Those that are tribal administrators, those that are city administrators, we're not going to tie you in knots over paperwork. This is a declared emergency, so we're going to get aid out to you as quickly as possible. And we'll unravel the paperwork and we'll unravel the issues as we go down the road here. But first and foremost, the most important thing is the typhoon has passed, but the damage is still there, and the lives of these people are being impacted severely and negatively. And so we are, as we're speaking now, there are people on the ground. We're going to get more people on the ground. We're going to make sure that we do everything we can, just like we have in every other declared disaster we've had in the state of Alaska. Whether it's Murbach, whether it's wildfires, whether it's landslides in Southeast Alaska, every single Alaskan matters to every single person here. And so what we want to let the people again know in the Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta, especially down in the Kuskokwim, is we know you need help. We're going to continue to get the help to you. We're going to do everything we can to get everything up and running as quickly as possible. And we will continue to help, not just today, tomorrow, but weeks and months on end until we get things back to what used to be at least considered semi-normal. For the long-term implications, we'll have those discussions too. But again, we're going to make sure that people are taken care of to the extent we possibly can. I know our federal delegation is working with the President Trump's administration on this. I know there are departments and secretaries that are monitoring this as well. And so we are going to, as soon as we're done with this meeting, we're going to reconvene to do a follow-up and make sure that our teams know what they have to do next. And next means like ASAP. So with that, again, I want to thank you for tuning in. And again, to the people in Kipnuk and Quig and others along the coast, we are going to do everything we can to help you as quickly as possible. So hang in there and help is on the way. So thank you.